Now it's time to proceed to the last section of the conference, which is the workshop in which we'll present functionality of Digital Securities Dashboard, and we are welcoming Stobox CEO Gene Deyev on this stage.
Hi, Boris. Hi. I hope the connection will be better, as we started wrong yesterday, went progressively worse from there. So I hope today will get better. So again, thank you. It's a pleasure to present the functionality of our Stobox dashboard. We've been working for a while. It's a combination of legal, technical, and other efforts that have been melted into the one visualized project on how to deal and manage security tokens or digital securities, including identities, primary sale, secondary sale, and so on. So before we proceed, I just want to make sure that whoever is interested in learning more, there's a public link on the business documentation of the dashboard, which is hosted at doc.stoboxplatform.com. Please share that with the community. There's a lot of insights and there's a lot of information on functionality and available functionality and the future functionality. So there's a lot of information to digest. So the first thing I want to mention is that the dashboard is the combination of a centralized technologies that we're used to, like classical databases and the classical front ends designs with a combination of a blockchain technology built on Web3 protocols. So basically, we took Ethereum public network as the primary blockchain to keep the data on the securities, and we wrap it up with the centralized technologies in order to, first of all, maintain the legal aspects, like, for example, GDPRs and the rights to be forgotten. That kind of information cannot be stored on blockchain, but rather has to be deleted. So for that purposes, we utilize centralized technologies, whereas the immunity and the non-ability to kind of to change the transactions for the securities, that is built on the public chain of Ethereum. Again, we were thinking of working with the private chains, but there's a lot of legal aspects to that. So we decided to start with a public network. It's a common in the crypto world. So once we move forward from that, there's another integrations coming up. So the product we built, it's a SaaS model. So it's a dashboard that would be installed and set up for our clients. So our first STO, what we're going to conduct, is our own. So we test those technologies on ourselves, including technological part and the legal part. That will be done within this year. So as the SaaS dashboard, it has two front ends. So one is the investor's view. So how would your potential investor log in and manage the information and manage the purchase and the secondary sale of securities? On the other hand, it's the corporate view, which means that how company promotes the securities. Boris, can you hear me well? Is that fine?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect. So there's two views, and we're gonna go one by one. So let's start with the investor's view. It starts with the registration. Meanwhile, provide, I will input. If Boris, if you have anything to ask or to say, I'll be happy to provide more info.
Yeah, you were perfect.
Anyway,
Your introduction. The very important point of the dashboard,
thank you.
having centralized and decentralized infrastructures together. When you store sensitive private data on a centralized infrastructure, which you just cannot share on the blockchain, and the decentralized one, and on the decentralized, you store the information that has to be verifiable by everybody.
It's also very important to mention that it's one of the concepts that we use in the dashboard and will be used in further products. The concept where we take the wallet, the anonymous blockchain wallet, regardless the chain, if it's an Ethereum chain or other chains, and we actually assign that wallet to the specific person. And the specific person is somebody who has certain rights, limits, amounts, IML procedures, compliance, depending on the jurisdiction. So it's a very important when we're dealing with securities, we have to know who's that person. And once we know that and we're happy with further operations with that person, then we can easily assign him a digital identity, a digital number on the blockchain. So whatever he's gonna do on the front end, it means that this person does that actions on blockchains which are immutable. So by doing this and by implementing that that combination, we actually manage dealing with securities on chain. So we go for registration. That's important steps. Okay, so once we register, I will just simply go on the dashboard like this because I'm already logged in. Before we proceed to the dashboard, it's a very important aspect to say that you can't do anything on the platform. So if you're an investor, you register, you prove your email, but your next step would be your identity verification. So the system does not allow you to do anything but to view what the corporate would like you to see, but no actions can be done unless you verify. Again, as I said, we comply with international laws and regulations, and one of them is the GDPR. And GDPR is the European practice and the European law. Boris knows better than me, but that's something that you have to comply in order to store sensitive information on investors. So if you're keeping passport details, addresses, proof of any proofs, this data has to be stored on specific databases and located in certain countries. So it's a quite of work in order to comply with that, but we actually managed to do so. Most of the countries differentiate, and we know that differentiate between individual investors and accredited investors. Public investors and accredited. They can be named differently. In US, it's accredited, and UK, sophisticated, so on. But the difference is whether that person, like as accredited, allows to purchase securities, whereas the public investor, you need additional regulations. So every country has their own sets of regulation and distinctiveness between accredited and public. So this is the reference. This is the reference flow. On the future releases, depending upon the country, we will be able to, first of all, assign those accreditation mechanism to check. So if I'm logging in and registering as accredited investor from UK, I would have different limits than, for instance, accredited investor from United States. So that kind of parts of the legislation that we transport to the code. And that's something that Steve Tandon was saying earlier today, where once we could translate the law into blockchain, then we would have an immutable system which would be able to provide AML and compliance on air, on the chain, and that's something that Stobox works on. So let me continue with identity verification. It's a very important step here. As I said, a person has to provide an address that his identity will be attached to. In this version, we don't generate. We could generate a new wallet for investor, but we try to avoid that because we don't want to deal with people's and investors' private keys. It's this software. It's actually a software. It's not a regulated venue. So we try to avoid additional security in respect to private keys. So we don't keep private keys, and it's something that investor comes in already. So he just have to provide his Ethereum wallet address and a reference amount. This is a reference amount. So how much he want to buy of a specific security. I will show you later on by what specific security, what is meant by specific security. Again, this is a reference because once we get that inquiry, when the corporate gets that inquiry, they will be able to see how much that specific person wants to buy. And that would impose additional AML checks. So if I would buy for 1,000 euros or for $1,000, a corporate doesn't have to, to scan through my AMLs. But if I want to buy 100,000, that's an additional, different journey, and I would be asked where the source of funds coming from and probably some proofs. So anyway, let's keep with 1,000 and move on. Let me fill in. That's something that investor types in. Again, we perfectly know that there's a different types of KYC processes. Like for instance, in Germany, Europe, there's one regulation on how KYC should be done. In US, it's different. In Asia, it's also different. So we just provide a reference here. As I said, it's a SaaS product, so we provide a reference flow. So once we have a client from Germany, of course, we would, instead of this step, we would impose an additional or further, more complex verification, probably via our partners, because Stobox is an API driven, so we can connect to any local KYC provider and make sure we don't forget any nuances which are very important on certain localities. And let me do this first. It's a basic procedure which has to be, that's. Boris, how's my connection?
Your connection is perfect.
Perfect. I don't want to same as yesterday. Anyway, place of birth, nationality. And whatever we input, that information will be accessible to the corporate, because the corporate is the client who issues the STO. So here we have Stobox as a logo because we will be issuing our own dashboard. But because it's a white label, so whoever our client is, we will be able to fully
dashboard can be customized quite significantly. So we can change colors, we can change all the necessary copyrights to fit your needs, and also add some additional steps which whether they are necessary. for your...
Yep. Okay, so let's fill in the reference KYC. Again, it can be integrated with any local provider. It's a very important step. Again, because we deal with securities, the flows are a bit different from the classical crypto ones, where people, can assign and buy and sell something within this, few clicks. Here we have to digest a bit further, because a person has to provide more detailed information if he is a publicly exposed person, if he's a political, if he is, because again, all these rules and regulations imposed by FATF and especially AML's Anti-Terrorism Act, all these things are very important to take into consideration and account in the software. So once I'm happy with that, I'm not a terrorist and I'm not, laundering money, I will successfully file that to the corporate. So once the corporate logs in, I will show you later on, the compliance manager. So me, as if I'm from the corporate side working in the compliance department, I will look at this and check if Gene is a decent person and can be validated as an investor. So once I am approved on a KYC level, my dashboard, my Stobox dashboard would look the following. So here on the left, I see my crypto balances. We whitelist only three cryptocurrencies, Ethereum. Why? Because you have to pay your gas fees, and for secondary transactions, because your securities are stored on the chain, on Ethereum chain. So whatever you're gonna do with them, you will have to pay commissions, which are in Ethereum. So that's why you have to see your balance. USDT, it's a stable coin, so we use it. First of all, it can be used to pay for security tokens. There's different regulations on that. For instance, in the US, we try to avoid that, even though we're a US company, whereas in different countries, it can be treated differently. But again, we treat USDT as the payment token, and regardless whether the issuer accepts crypto or fiat, the settlement is done in US dollars. So regardless how much I pay Ethereum for that specific security, my contract and my legal contract will be done in dollars. It's a very important. So that's a stable coin again to provide the flexibility for the payments. And we also recently we've launched a Stobox utility token, which is used as the commission token for our operations. So our clients can first of all pay commissions in this utility token, and secondly in our further products like Stobox Exchange, and we also work on the decentralized exchange for securities. That token will be used as the gas. So obviously we see that here. In terms of fiat, and we can see we have a fiat integration, fiat balance here. We're not a regulated venue, so we don't plan to actually be one. So we're not a money provider, so we cannot provide our own accounting in USD. But what we can do and what's our plans is the integration with the INEO banks, or whoever is providing a PSD2 directive API from the financial institution providers. So we have a couple of companies who would like to integrate with. So once the integration is complete, I'm as an investor will be able to, within few clicks, because again, you have my information on my KYC, and that data can be shared with a specific financial provider. So the euro or dollar accounts can be integrated here. So you would be able to pop up your fiat balance into Stobox, into your wallet here, but it's not the wallet that we hold, it's the wallet like IBAN number to you by a specific financial institution in Europe or in US. That's something that is in our pipeline for 2021. So it's a very unique feature, because once we do that, we will be able to provide delivery versus payment on a fiat basis apart from the crypto. It's a very important for settlement, security settlement. As I said, our stock, our securities are stored. The Stobox demo common stock, that's actually, it's the demo stock, it's a demo contract. I will explain a bit further now. Is the smart contract that holds our securities, and we can, by managing that with our identities, that's how we actually send shares or allocate shares to our investors or shareholders. So by looking at this, we can see there's 3 anonymous wallets which hold over like from a total amount of 1 million shares. There's a ticker. Again, it's the demo stock, but it's built. It's a bit different from the classical contracts that people are used to with the utility tokens, and the difference is the functionality. Actually, this is auditable, so whoever would like to see how that contract works, you can actually go on Ethereum, find that specific security, even though it's a demo, and actually see what are the functions. And let me just show you the references on the functionality, because again, as I said, there's a lot of things which are done on centralized part of the venue, but the most important are done on the blockchain side, like whitelisting. So if I'm the person who, am I allowed to have that specific tokens on my account? That would be assigned by the corporate who runs the whitelisting function. Because we're dealing with securities, a corporate should be able to manage them. So by managing, you can burn them on third-party accounts. You can block them. For instance, if the person, I don't know, everything was fine with him, but he somehow failed to provide additional KYC data, and he was accused of, I don't know, money laundering. So what we do with that client? Do we allow him to continue to sell, to liquidate his position on the market, or we have to block him? So all of that different functions and types that the company has to do with their securities to perform corporate governance, that is implemented in the first version of the contract. That's will be public very soon. Again, that's something that we're working on, because the limits and the whitelisting is not the only functions which will be done. We, again, as a start, we're overseeing regulatory layer. So that's something that we can whitelist the rights in every country that we would like to run that system. So once everything will be on chain, then we can actually provide the secondary trading with much easier with a DAIC. So that will be a decentralized exchange.
Adding these additional functions to Simple's ERC20 actually solves the custody issue of security tokens, because we all know the problem. If the investor loses private keys to his wallet, then the tokens are lost. But on the other hand, we don't want to give the complete control over this wallet to a centralized institution, to an issuer, to a broker, etc. Because now this private key becomes compromisable. It can be hacked, it can be lost, there appears opportunity for fraud, etc. And thus you create a system of checks and balances. Tokens are still stored on the wallet, and the private key is not only to investor. But on the other hand, issuer has an ability to burn tokens or to transfer them to another tokens in the case the wallet is compromised and lost. And for every transactions and the issuer cannot abuse this right, because every transaction with security tokens has to be signed, accompanied by signing legal documentation. The Gene will show you on later stages how purchasing securities has also been accompanied with signing contracts, which means that you have three aspects: the technology, the centralized technology, decentralized technology, and legal aspects balancing each other. And even if one of these fails, two other still keep alive and running.
Thank you, man. Absolutely, absolutely. Let's move on to the next. So again, that's the investor's view. So once I'm ready to invest, my account has been verified from an email standpoint and KYC verified by the corporate. My Ethereum wallet is verified. I see my balances here, so I can move on. By moving on, I would like to learn more about the company that I would like to invest in. Again, it's a SaaS product, so it can be customized for crowdfunding venues. It can be customized for SMEs, for any company. Here, it was customized to Stobox, and within our STO, we're overseeing our common stock. So our investors would learn about us from that specific page and would be able to learn about because that infrastructure is deployable to different domains. Here we have it's an app domain, STBX, but we will have it, like for instance, digital securities ds.stobox. So if there was a, I don't know, Plaza Hotel, that would be a ds.plazahotel.com. So, and it will be customized. So the Plaza Hotel would go to that, investors would go to that specific page and register there, pass KYC, and then manage securities. So this is the page which was customized for Stobox. So what we can see here is it's a C Corp, United States, some public links, overview. Here we have a corporate security. So if we, let's say, and it's a great concept, I love it so much. I think, I mean, it's a very traditional, first of all, it's a very traditional to sell stocks, but now these days we can segregate certain revenue streams and provide revenue share from different activities. So whatever securities I would like to, or the company would like to issue, those securities can be listed here and should be listed here with the different tickers, with the different types. So here's the common stock, but could be revenue share, fund unit, that, anything. So any type of security could be stored here. So your investor can differentiate, and instead of purchasing your stock, probably will be interested in purchasing part of your revenue on certain operations. It's very important to differentiate between moving your stocks to blockchain and actually create an offering. So those are two different processes. It's not necessarily that a company that moves their operation to chain in terms of their securities necessarily seek to go for STO. Like for instance, we have a potential client from APEC countries, a company that doesn't, they're not raising money, but they have 5,000 investors. and different revenue streams. So they need a system that would allow to better manage those 5,000 investors, because their compliance and KYC departments that just go ballistically overheated. And so at the same time, they're not doing an STO. So that's something that also can be done. So you don't create an offering, but you manage your securities on chain. And again, this system allows you to do so. But if you decide to create an offering, that's something that has to be separated and separately, first of all, legally constructed and technically constructed. So what we can see here is an active investment opportunity, which is a public offering of the common stock with a certain features and parameters of the physical security. So it's an equity that would allow dividends. It doesn't have voting rights. It does not allow revenue shares. It doesn't have any specific conditions. Again, these variables are edibles. So we can, once the industry gives more unique features, we will be able to develop that further. So something like IP rights, which was discussed today's on the panels. So any types of parameters can be visualized here. Again, because its securities are very important for investors to provide a decent and digestible information for investors. So I think that's a corporate obligation. So we have a certificate of incorporation, certificate of good standing, articles, offering memorandum, decision boards. So these are types of, there could be any amount of documents, but those documents are very important for the investors to make certain decisions. I would not go and invest into a company which does not provide a free, public, digestible, and clear information on who they are and what they do.
I want to add that
so
you can
that's
use this step
something that
to file your quarterly or annual reports as a company with investors. That is this and can be expanded as a comprehensive place to conduct all the types of communication with investors, including the reporting.
Absolutely. Management team is also very important. So again, it's a very interesting combination of classical security sale with with long unreadable prospectuses mixed up with public marketing, if you can say. So again, I think it's a new trend of how you actually promote your company to public investors or to any type of investors. So once I'm happy with Stobox, and actually I would like to invest into securities, I go the next step, and that step is investment opportunities. So as I said, if the company has more than one, they'll be listed here. So I will be I can differentiate between them and make my decision. So if my decision is to buy, I will go and proceed further. That's a 4-step procedure. Let's fill in. So in the beginning, when I was filing KYC, I provided a reference date on how much I would like to invest. And I input the 1,000. So the KYC check, nothing specific. But for instance, I'm putting here 100,000. First of all, it's over the limit. So there is a certain limits that were imposed on me on the process.
Yeah, as Gene mentioned,
would be stored differently. So there's a part of the limit that is stored on the centralized functions, centralized part, and some of the limits would be stored on person would like to manage his securities outside of Stobox ecosystem, like directly writing into the contract or directly sending, he would not be able to. That's a very important key concept. Yes,
Yeah, that's
Maurice.
wanted to mention that this investment threshold is defined each time depending on your needs and your specific of the company. So there is not a clear guideline that the investment at which you don't check the source of fund below 10 companies, it is about $20,000, and for some it is five, depending on your jurisdiction and your risk level. So depending on your needs, you set up the threshold that below this threshold you don't check the source of funds, and above you do. And it also depends on specifics such as, is the investor a politically exposed person, or that the amount he or she specified that is going to purchase in the KYC and the actual purchased amount match at least approximately. So all of these are factors that impact your decision, and you should adopt a risk-based approach advised by regulatory authorities.
That's absolutely true, but we have a let's say we have a as Stobox, we perfectly understand that that kind of information are very difficult, is very difficult to gain and kind of collect, and most of our clients that are coming to us and saying, guys, what should be done? We need to do that and that, but how? So we throw a 1,000-question page on them. once they finish, actually our legal department is able to process that information and give you the result, or depending on where you're depending on the goal. So what type of the company you are, from where you would like to find investors, what's your tax regime, what's your regulation, what's your budget. So all these things taken into consideration will provide kind of the best solution with the technical and legal implication on that. So what we see is the best for Stobox Technologies Inc. registered in US. At this second step, it's a very important step. It's actually a stock purchase agreement. It's a stock or security token purchase agreement. We need to change the naming, but that's the physical agreement that a person has to sign. So once I agree, this document will be stored, generated as the PDF, signed with my IP. It's not by law, this signature is legally validated, which means that I can no longer say, sorry, I didn't know what I was doing. I'm, I never bought those kind of securities. It's not a money laundering or so on. So yes, so once we have that confirmation, and we have that timestamp, we have that IP, that session, we perfectly know who you are, what's that person, what's his blockchain address, that's a legal information. So that's very important to understand. Once we're happy with the document and are serious in our investment, we can choose the payment method. Again, as I said, there's a different type of methods, wire transfer. That part is easy. The corporate will just issue an invoice with the amounts that you have selected. So the price of the security each token is $1, and I input 10,000 as the amount. So the invoice will be generated for the $10,000, and I will have to go to my bank or use my whatever virtual banks and wire that money to the specific company's address, to the bank accounts. I will know. Branch, because that's kind of simple. So I will show you how the corporate sees that request. and proceeds that request. I'll do that a bit later on. But now let's move to crypto transfer. At this stage, at this specific V1 version, we have not integrated the Web3 protocol to the investors dashboard yet. So, which means that I have to go to a different wallet or to different physical wallets and send those amounts. It's either Ethereum to pay $10,000. So I need 2169.67 Ethereum to pay for that, for my 10,000 shares, or I'll be using USDT. But upon the release, we will integrate the Web3. I will show you a bit further how that works, so I can actually pay directly on that page. So once I will pay, I will have to input the hash if I did it manually, or if I will pay from the infrastructure, the hash will be automatically assigned and stored, which means that yes, it was me who did the payment from that specific IP at that specific time, signing at that specific agreement. So it's something that a regulator wants from a legal standpoint. So let me just put on any hash and proceed. So once the manager of the company would look at this, they will assign me certain, the demanded securities. And here is the last part of the personal dashboard. I see all the transactions. So that's something that was already done. So that was my request for 10,000. The receiver is Stobox Technologies Inc., and I'm the sender. The transaction was approved. And what do I see here? I see the balance. So that's the balance which comes from the chain directly. So we don't store that data. So if Ethereum wallet, if your securities, if you would send if the balance changes on your wallet, you would see that here. But obviously, if you don't compromise your private key, nobody would be able to do so. So, and your legal agreements are stored, as I said, as a PDF. They can be stored here, viewed here. So me as an investor, I would have an access to my legal documents and my security tokens and my balances and whatever I need to do to continue being investor of Stobox. Again, we don't have a sell button here yet, and the reason is the secondary market challenges. Again, there's a number of those from a regulatory standpoint to technical standpoints. But if you look at not at the crypto habits, but if you look at the classical securities flow, most of US securities, if they're sold under Reg D, they cannot be resold within the first 12 months. So, or you have to go for additional qualifications like Reg A and further. So we don't do that. So we have a limit for our investors. If they come from US, they won't be able to sell our securities, sell our common stock for the first 12 months. So it's not very critical that we don't have a sell button here. But again, in terms of our clients, if our client is a regulated venue and they have a Reg A, or in Europe, their prospectus has been validated. So if their business model and they're legally allowed to sell their securities from day one, that's an easy to accomplish. So that the secondary venue is in the development at the moment, but further down the road we would be able to deploy that and give access to our clients.
Connection is fine.
Boris just wants to make sure that the connection
I
is
can see your
fine and everything
screen.
goes well.
You are just rocking and looking forward to continue.
Perfect. Thank you indeed. So, okay, that's and that's something that we also oversee is again, it's a reference, but the banking account. So once the dividends will be distributed, you would be allowed to choose on how you would like these dividends to be to be sent, if it's a bank account or the crypto. So if I'll be willing to receive my cuts to my personal bank accounts, I can easily provide information here, and the corporate manager, upon the distribution, they will be using these accounts to send my money to. Okay, so that's how our investor sees the management of the system. And let's look how the corporate would see the system. So it's a registration for companies. We register them, we register them within the, so there is automated registration, again, because it requires a lot of legal, technical, and other business details. So there's no point in provision of a separated registration for a company. So you just have to email us and become our client. Can you say it again, Boris, please?
That anyways, there is no point in you register it on the platform own, actually, that you own and you operate.
No, I perfectly understand. What I mean is that if you're a company and you would like to do an STO, you don't have an access to just register your company and deploy that. So it has to be done manually. So you call us and say, hey guys, we need to do an. So and customize and deploy. So like with the investors view, a corporate is able to manage their security. That's how they can be distributed to shareholders, to new investors. So the management is the primary function of the dashboard from a corporate standpoint. So we oversee three. Which means my shares or my security tokens will be stored on a hardware device. You know, I have an office. In the office, there's a safe, and I put my ledger in the safe, and I know that my shares are stored in the safe in a blockchain wallet. So I'll be happy and safe. So there's, we have potential clients with that kind of vision in their heads, and we're perfectly happy with that. Anything that makes them happy, if they feel that it's enough security, or I can manage by accessing the Web3 via a private key provision. So, for instance, it's a small company. I hold my own kind of. I'm a treasurer in the company, and I hold a private key from my. Sorry, there's additional sounds. But anyway, we'll be using MetaMask as the gateway to Web3. Let me just see if the connection is fine. I can see it's connected. So let's look at the management side of the dashboard. So we have a set of functions. Again, all these functions are neatly described in our documentation file. So if you're interested in further details, please go and read. Anyway, we have a dashboard, transfer, manage, offerings, transactions, and settings. But let me go step by step. So the whitelisted account, so any corporate has the blockchain wallet assigned to them and legally assigned. So if you're going to do an STO, there should be a paper saying, from different jurisdictions, there could be called differently, but the paper should say the following: that this is my primary source of whatever, of my shares or their revenue streams. So this wallet has to be legally recognized on your papers and translated to the authorities in some cases, or anyway just declared that's the primary. So once you do that, all your all the transactions and all the holdings within that specific smart contract becomes your primary source. And we have a whitelisted wallet. So here I can see that I have 3 types of balances with some amounts on them. So I have a $78 on my Ethereum. I have $200 on within Stobox tokens. So that's my corporate cryptocurrency. Again, it's a different journey depending on the different regulations, whether a company is allowed to have that kind of balances. But again, it depends on the local regulations. Anyway, that's the balance that is stored with you on your corporate wallet, which is whitelisted. Okay, so once I did a KYC, once a potential investor registers and passes the KYC, there are 4 types of statuses that the person can be in the system. He can be not verified. He could be suspended. For instance, we find out that on his wallet, there is some malicious action. So this wallet is in the blacklist, on the scam list. So there's actually, it's really cool that that Ethereum ecosystem evolves, and we already have an AML automated softwares that would provide us with a clear view on who was that person. So like imagine we're whitelisting a blockchain wallet, and we have an ability, an API to scan malicious activities on that wallet, and we find out that that person, let's say money laundries in Asia. So what we're gonna do? We're gonna suspend his account and then figure out what to do next. So that type of things, which are very important from the AML standpoint and the regulations, they're already implemented on a conceptual, first of all, level, and it's already implemented on a product level here as well. So, but the Masayoshi-san was, he's a public investor, so he was verified. There's no problems with him. So once he was verified, he, as I showed you, he could go and proceed with his investing. And I will show the process a bit later, but once the person buys and becomes our shareholder or our token holder, we can see him from the registry standpoint. So that's the security we have. So if we have multiple securities, there'll be a list of those. But we have only one, and it's a demo. And we see the registry, so that's actually our cap table. We see the wallet, the first and the last name, and we can open that person, and we can manage his data. So we know his private information, his locality, and I am not, I mean, within the flow, I may not be a person who could validate accredited or sophisticated investors. So I should be able to send us data to additional verification, and that's also overseen because we have potential integrations with the selected KYC providers. So you can choose the provider depending on. Again, that's a reference payment, but depending on their volume, different providers can give you a different pricing. So I would choose the best price and I can pay. Actually, I can pay with a Stobox token. Let's try to do the following. Voila. So I see, actually, that's the MetaMask call, but if I would log in from the private key, I would even not see that. The process will be sleek. So let's just confirm. Voila. So I just sent the Stobox utility tokens to pay for extended KYC for KYC check for that specific person. Once we have a Boolean result, yes or no, if the person is decent, he will be verified automatically, and he will be received an email that Gene, happy you are verified. Or if a KYC provider fails to check him, the person will not be allowed here, so he will not be able to do any operations. Again, we have these documents here. Very important, we have primary market limit and a secondary market limit. So these are types of limits that are stored on chain. So imagine we are releasing any company releases their stocks, but because it's a private company, and they may limit the secondary, or actually disable a secondary market transactions. I see that's confirmation for the payment for my KYC. Again, it's the mixture of Web3 technologies and a centralized frameworks. So it's really cool to see that combination. Again, you can learn more about secondary limits from the documentation. But if you want to stop trading of your private securities, you just create a zero limit for everyone. And if I am a potential investor, actually I'm an investor, would like to sell, my chunk to Boris, let's say my 1,000 shares, I would go to a corporate and say, guys, we would like to proceed that kind of transaction. Please allow us. And the company would make that decision, and then my limits could be altered, and that process could be accomplished from the technological standpoint. But if you're happy with trading and the secondary trading, I mean, your regulation does not require to stop that or to limit that. You can actually create a billion limit amount and make sure your investors are happy trading. Again, we have disable function, suspend function, and re-KYC. So every year, if I would like to, at any point of the investor's life, I would like to kind of re-KYC, I'm able to do that here from the interface. Let's look at the transactions. Let's continue with that. So there's a 4 different types of transactions. So they can be approved with crypto, with incoming payment crypto, approved with incoming payment of wire, or they can be new or processing. So let's look at the first one, crypto, where Gene actually STBX common stock for $10,000, he paid crypto. This was approved. So that's actually a check which will be exported in a PDF format, so I can validate that along with, remember, I've signed a security token purchase agreement, so that's a receipt. So those 2 documents will be valid. Actually, they validate my purchase. I can go with that into court. I'm an official investor, so I just, it's not just buying any token on the web. It's actually a physical purchase and a legal purchase of securities from the company, and that's the check for that. So there was a request for 10,000. The incoming payment was the transfer was exactly 10,000 STBX at the price of $1 each. So we're happy with the transaction. We have an identical receipt for the wire, but instead of a crypto, I have my balance, my bank balance was credited for that amount. I received 850 euros, so I've checked and see that money coming from that specific investor, so I can assign security tokens to him. Again, as I said with the fiat balances in the beginning of the workshop, it's very important to integrate with IBAN accounts providers, with the financial providers, and in this case, we can do delivery versus payments. So I will not go and check for the balance of 850s on a different venue, but I would rather see that amount coming directly to my dashboard. And once I see that amount, I can automatically call send function of delivery versus payment. So I start the delivery once I receive my payment, and again, it's possible once we proceed with and complete integration. Okay, that's the approved transaction, but let's see what's with the Edward Forster. So he made an inquiry for 2,600 shares and actually wired that amount to us, but we don't have that we don't see that on this venue. So we go to the bank and see and make sure that we've received, but let's say we received, the request was 2,600 euros, but because of the commissions, we received 2,000, let's say 2,000, voila. So I will not send him, okay, that's in dollars. I will not send him the amount which was allocated, but I rather send him the amount which was paid. So I will have to input that data here, double check, and this is the amount of security tokens. Let's confirm, and okay, the next step. I just want to make sure that the investor is Edward, and his email, his wallet is decent. I can copy, paste, and just check if I need to do my kind of further checks before I proceed. I choose my securities, so that's my token on the chain. I have that number of security tokens. There's my limits which are implemented. Me as a corporate, because we deal from the corporate side, we have no limits, so that's the reference numbers. But once I confirm, again, I see my MetaMask calls, I see that amount of specific of my securities, and I simply confirm. So this amount of security tokens were successfully sent to Morgan. And why I'm sure, because we just created a hash function. So we have a proof of, this is the hash link of sending 2,550 tokens to that specific address. So that's a blockchain receipt which validates the purchase. So once that is done, we can now we have that information both in a centralized venue on a part of the dashboard and decentralized. Let's look. So if I, as the manager, I can either operate with my transactions from the transaction part of the dashboard, or I can simply go through transfer. Because if an investor sends you an inquiry, that would be an incoming transaction, like a knock to you. But if me, for example, we have a off venue agreement with Boris, and we decide to distribute our common stock without any kind of procedures of the purchase. We just want to send them to each other. We just choose the recipient, make sure the wallet was whitelisted, choose the security, enter the reference. For example, we created a board decision assigning another 1,000 shares to us. So I would go and say, this is the board decision. I would enter amounts of security tokens. Let's say we assigned 10,000. I would proceed. It's either payment received. If, for example, we received a payment in cash. There's a lot of conditions where it can be the case, or it's a free of payment. So with the case where we share with Boris, like it's an option plan, it's a free of payment. So the manager of the system, the treasurer in this case, he allows to send those securities to that specific person. So again, we just sign that, call the MetaMask, and see the specific amounts of securities being transferred to anonymous wallet. But here we see whose that wallet is. So that's the transfer part. Also, that part of the dashboard is not ready yet. The reason is before these functions have to be available, we need to conduct further STOs, because this is a secondary or the management of the existing digital securities. So if you want to issue more, for example, we created let's say 1 million common stock, and we decide to, let's say, create another 1 million and sell them regardless. So we need to translate that function and to the dashboard. So I would issue and I would create new securities here, or I could redeem. So for example, if I have, like a bond, so we just released the bond and now we need to redeem the bond. So it was all paid out, and now we would like to redeem that. So those functions again are secondary functions for the dashboard. So that's why we are not putting it as a priority. From the offering standpoint, again, you as the company cannot deploy the offering here from your dashboard, but it's done via our internal management. So all this has to be verified and synchronized with the customer, with the issuer, and once that is done, our customer will just receive that nice form in a form of front end. But further down the road, there will be a more semi-automatic STOs creation. And again, the creation of STO would depend on kind of two aspects. First of all is the legal aspect and the technical. So the technical part we can deploy, but in terms of the legal, we oversee. We have a set of partnerships, legal partnerships. So if I will be deploying and creating my STO. I will be filing my old data here, and once that is done, that information could be sent, or this information could get access to a legal provider. He will double check that everything fine, make sure, signs that, and once the legal provider actually validates that data, this data can be shown as the offering on the venue. So this process could be done semi-automatic with the verification of a qualified legal provider, and we would be able to build the technological stack for that. Again, we have an offering. It's a registry. We just move and see how many investors participate in that. Again, there's nothing which may look complicated. We perfectly understand that the UX and the approaches and the product approaches to the dashboard are very important, because these are, this dashboard is mostly done for the managers, for the corporate managers. So this kind of people are not really aware of the nuances of a decentralized technologies, of a blockchain. They should be able to easily manage, set of functions, on a everyday basis. So, with that kind of vision, we oversaw the flows, and I think we tried to do our best to minimize the interaction and to make sure the information is very digestible on every part of the management. So I think that's it for from the product standpoint. There's a lot of things which are going on under the hood. Again, so this is just the first kind of something that you can touch and visualize, but a smart contract standpoint, because limits, whitelisting, AMLs, and all these regulatory and financial parts and legal aspects are in the process of digestion and in the process of transformation to the code, and that's something that we we're very interested in, and it's something that we build. I think that's definitely a future of the securities market. I believe that this decentralized securities exchanges with automated compliance and regulations is something that would absolutely boost. Nobody actually likes that boring things of checking.
And before we proceed,
Boris, thank you.